A man knocks down a basement wall and finds a hidden city stretching hundreds of feet underground. A backyard walk turns into millions of buried gold, and road crews hit everything from dinosaur eggs to a perfectly preserved ancient body. These are unexpected discoveries found while digging underground. In 1963, a man in Turkey was doing some routine renovation work in his basement when he grabbed a sledgehammer and started knocking down a wall. The moment the wall crumbled, he saw something that he was never expecting to see. Behind the stone was a pitch-black opening, and when he followed it, he realized he wasn't just in a tunnel, he was in a massive underground tunnel leading to an ancient city called Derinkuyu. And when I say underground city, I really mean it. This was not a small cave or a storage room. It's a whole network of rooms and pathways carved directly into the rock, stretching hundreds of feet below the surface. The scale of the place, it's hard to wrap your head around. It had 18 levels, was built to shelter up to 20,000 people at a time. It had everything a real city needs to function: kitchens, stables for animals, chapels, and schools, all connected by these narrow hallways. It even had a genius ventilation system with shafts that channeled fresh air all the way down to the bottom levels. They used giant circular stone doors that could only be locked from the inside to block off intruders. For hundreds of years, the people living on the surface had no idea that this entire city was sitting right below their feet. In 2013, a California couple was taking their dog for a walk on their property when they noticed something strange sticking out of the dirt near an old tree. It was a rusted metal can, mostly buried and covered in grime. At first, they probably thought it was just some old trash that someone had dumped decades ago, but when they pried open the lid, they found gold coins inside. They went back to the same spot with a metal detector and started scanning the area, and before long, they were digging up 7 more cans. Inside those cans were thousands of gold coins, dating back to the late 1800s, all in near perfect condition. This is now known as the Saddle Ridge Hoard, and it was estimated to be worth around $10 million. Nobody knows for sure who put the coins there, but historians think a wealthy person didn't trust the banking system and decided to bury their life savings in the dirt. Obviously, it never came back for them. The couple had walked past that specific tree for years without realizing that they were stepping on a literal fortune. In early 2026, construction workers in Hull, England were in the middle of a routine excavation for a new water tank in Queen's Gardens when they hit something incredibly hard. They assumed it was a rock or some old foundation, but then they cleared away the mud and they realized they were staring at a huge cast iron cannon. It was over 8 feet long and weighed more than 2,200 pounds. It had been buried underground for centuries, and historians believe it dates back to the late 1600s. Back in that era, this area of the city was part of a major fortified dockyard. As the city grew and warfare changed, the old fortifications were torn down and the land was leveled to make room for new buildings. Instead of the massive back-breaking job of hauling that heavy cannon away, the construction crews at the time just dumped it in a hole and paved right over it. So it sat there for 300 years while the city transformed around it. When a company started construction on a new hotel in Alexandria, Virginia back in 2015, they were not expecting to find a piece of the high seas in their foundation. While they were digging out the dirt for the basement levels, crew kept hitting large curved pieces of timber. It looked like someone had just dropped a huge wooden frame in the mud. As it turned out, that was sort of the case. It was the remains of a merchant ship from the 1700s. In the 18th century, people didn't have the same environmental laws that we have today, obviously, and when a ship got too old, damaged to sail, it wasn't always scrapped or taken to a shipyard. Often it was just dragged to the shoreline and sunk on purpose. It filled the boat with rocks and dirt to create new solid land, which helped the city expand its waterfront. So over time, the city just grew out over the hulls of these ships. The one they found in Alexandria is remarkably well preserved because it was buried in wet, oxygen-free mud that prevented the wood from rotting. So archaeologists had to move at an incredible pace to dismantle the ship piece by piece, trying to preserve the wood before it just dried out and crumbled. A maintenance crew in Scotland was doing some routine repairs on the old Ruthven Bridge a few years back when they pulled a loose stone out of the foundation. Sitting in a small hollowed-out space inside the masonry was a metal box. Turned out it was a time capsule left by the bridge's original builders way back in 1894. Inside the box, they found a local newspaper from the exact day the bridge was finished, a handwritten scroll with the names of every worker who built it, and a bottle bottle of scotch. It was a tradition for builders at the time to leave a little something behind for future generations, a way of saying we were here. While the paper and the scroll were gold for historians, the bottle of whiskey, that was definitely the prize. A literal taste of the 1890s, showing exactly how the drink was made more than 100 years ago. In 2015, road workers in Huiyan, China were in the middle of a standard job carrying up a street to fix a broken pipe when they hit this layer of hard, round objects. They're about to keep digging when they realized these weren't stones, they were fossilized dinosaur eggs. They ended up finding 43 eggs in that one single spot, and 19 of them were in near perfect condition, somehow surviving the weight of the asphalt and the traffic. Now, this specific part of China is actually known as a hotspot for fossils, but finding fossilized eggs directly under a busy city street, that was completely unexpected. You have to think about the people who drove over that road every single day. Thousands of commuters going to work or heading home were driving their cars back and forth over the remains of a dinosaur nursery. Back in 2011, road workers in Taizhou, China were widening a street when their shovel hit something wooden. They stopped the job immediately, and when the archaeologists arrived, they realized they'd found a coffin from the Ming Dynasty. This woman had been buried roughly 700 years before, but she hadn't decayed the way that you would expect. The coffin was layered, and when they opened the innermost box, there were more than just bones. Her skin was still soft, her clothes were perfectly intact. The secret was this mysterious dark brown liquid that the coffin was filled with. It acted like a natural preservative, sealing her away from the air. A man in the UK was digging a few holes in his garden to put up a new fence when he uncovered a heavy, dark rock that had a really strange texture. He pulled it out, set it aside, didn't really think much of it for a long time. He actually kept the rock in his garden shed for 16 years. It wasn't until 2013 that he finally decided to show it to a local expert, and the news he got back was incredible. It wasn't a rock at all, it was a vertebrae from a plesiosaur. These were massive, terrifying marine reptiles that hunted in the oceans during the time of the dinosaurs. They had huge heads, short necks, and 4 massive flippers that they used to zip through the water to hunt their prey. The specific bone he found belonged to a creature that would have been longer than a school bus. The fossil had survived millions of years, only to be found by someone trying to fix a fence in his backyard. When construction crews were digging in London to build the new headquarters of a massive financial firm, found something that completely stopped the project. The remains of an ancient Roman temple. It was dedicated to the god Mithras, a figure worshipped by this mysterious cult-like group that was very popular among Roman soldiers. His temple dated back to around 240 CE, and it's been buried under feet of mud and debris as the city changed over the last 2,000 years. It was preserved so well, they even found a wooden tablet with some of the oldest handwritten documents in London's history. And now you can walk through the ruins. They've been restored and integrated right into the base of the modern office building. So you can walk from a high-tech office lobby where people are like trading stocks on their computers and then directly into a temple that was built 1800 years ago. Deep inside salt mines across Europe, miners have occasionally come across salt mummies. These are exactly what they sound like, remains of prehistoric people who were perfectly preserved by the salt in the walls of the tunnels. Because salt is so good at absorbing moisture, it pulls the water out of everything it touches. Even if someone died in a salt mine thousands of years ago, they can be pretty well preserved. Granted, they're like a dried out, leathery version of themselves, but they're not just bones. These finds are always startling because the clothing, the hair, their skin, and the tools they were carrying are often still intact. So when modern miners have been fortunate or unfortunate enough, depending on how you look at it, to come across these bodies, they often say they look like a person who's just fallen asleep. And that has been the video. I will catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next one.